information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we're so thrilled and grateful that you are joining us today. We've got an incredible episode with you to share with you. And of course, as always, if you're just brand new to us, we are all about engaging conversation, elevating health and wellness, and empowering transformation, and all that implies underneath that umbrella. Now, before we get started, just to let you know, just underneath your screen, there should be a little tag where you can drop down and you'll be able to tap into the show notes. There's some important information and incredible takeaway nuggets that you can apply going forward. And no matter where you are tuning in from, whichever channel that you are joining us today, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we certainly love to continue to connect with you. If you are tuning in live stream, if you're catching this live, remember you can always share with us your input, your feedback, your takeaways, so that way we are able to continue this conversation and very likely rope you into it. Now, let's get down to business. Today is all about this transformational journey, which we've been on, and yet we're putting a unique spin on things. We're tapping into the arts. And of course, we all know that this age and times that we're in, we are recognizing how impactful this is. So it comes as no surprise, and the timing is perfect to introduce my next guest. Her name is Laura Christina Alexander. Laura Alexander. She is a trauma-informed transformational creativity coach. She's also a Neurographica specialist. And if you're not sure what that is, we're going to dive into that, of course. And she has developed a knack that she calls transformational creativity. And it's a pathway that utilizes the arts, healing, and transformative power for self-discovery. If we've ever been in a very trying chapter in our lives, how do we tap into the arts and that level of creativity so that we can transcend any limiting beliefs we have, in addition to processing emotions? So she's got an incredible membership that's geared towards women to really reach a space of feeling peaceful, resilient, and empowered, a combination of utilizing art and science-based tools for us to create those levels of breakthroughs. And so without further ado, we've got to dive into this. Allow me to welcome Laura Alexander. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so thrilled that you're here. And you've got quite the accolades and the roles. It's a very complex role where you cover so many different areas. Talk to us about how you got to this point. Tell us a little bit about your beginnings and how you came to be the coach that you are today.
Well, let me back it up just a bit. By profession, I was an interior designer and general contractor for over 20 years. Then I became a jewelry designer at the same time. And post recession, I ended up with a corporate job for 5 years in which I was seriously injured. Long story short, I had to stay within the job, and there was some abuse going on, not only with myself, but also a couple of other women. I'll bypass that altogether because that's a long story, and you can read the book when it comes out. That's a joke. But during my injury and rehabilitation from that injury, I had a pain management psychologist who encouraged me to get back into my creativity, and I started painting. Well, I got into flow while I was painting, and it alleviated not all the symptoms, but it helped considerably. So when the pandemic hit, I had to leave my job, and it was actually a fortuitous thing for me because the injury happened while I had been in this position, and workman's comp paid me to go back to school. So they took care of that whole education, and I went through a transformative life coaching program through Sophia University, which is in Palo Alto, California. And their program is affiliated with ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, which is the gold standard. So I went through that whole program and it was terrific. And I started creating a course on healing because during the course of my taking my coaching certification and painting and working on myself, my thought was I could not find one methodology that worked for a lot of the things that I was dealing with. So, as a trauma survivor, I was diagnosed with PTSD because of everything that had happened. And so I started exploring different methodologies to incorporate into a program for myself for healing. And fast forward, um, we started coming out of the pandemic, and then I found another process called Neurographica. And so I started using the method for myself and taking classes. And because I have a coaching background, I was eligible for their specialist program. So that brought me up to the point of incorporating both my transformational creativity practice and this course that I was creating along with Neurographica.
Wow, and that's quite a journey, especially
Mhm.
in a short amount of time. And then, of course, we
Yes.
have the, the fallout from the pandemic, where
Yes.
everyone pivoted, of course. And take me back to the moment where, or the time period in which you were you were processing transitioning from your job and workman's comp. What were some things that you had your takeaway from? Let me back up. Let me re-ask that again.
Mm.
What did you notice in hindsight that that was not working for you as you were having to deal with this injury and then it evolving to PTSD?
What I was experiencing was very difficult sleep, insomnia. I was dealing with very severe depression, and severe anxiety. So you can have anxiety or you can have depression, or if you have both, you get the winning ticket. Basically, I'm joking, but it really is awful to have both. Um, you ruminate a lot. You have something called, most people have what's called suicide ideation. You're not actually going to go through with it, but you're thinking about it. It's running in the background all the time. Um, Issues of self worth. Um,
And how did you know that, or let me back up. Were there tools that were in place in the work environment that was, say, supposed to be helpful that were not?
no. I actually was instrumental in getting our manager released from the company. To put it very politely and politically. I approached his regional manager, and it was just on my behalf as well as these two other women. And so there was a full investigation, and he was let go. But I was in the throes of getting treatment for my injury. And because of insurance and that kind of thing, I couldn't leave. So I was forced to stay in the job. So as I said, the pandemic was actually a blessing for me because I was then able to take some of the things I was studying and then go full blast, hit the ground running. April of 2020, started taking course after course. And then because of previous conversation with my pain management psychologist, I thought to myself, I've been researching all of this since 2018 while I was still in a job. I had file boxes full of information from webinars and classes that I had taken during that time. So it was 2 years of accumulated knowledge and workshops and this kind of thing. So I started compiling this and using these methods within this program for myself. I never launched the course, but I'm now moving into creating a membership that will be launched later this month, and we can talk about that later.
Absolutely. So, as you're transitioning to this, was there anything that helped you tap into this arena of using tools to help you cope, to help you to help you navigate through changing the roles that you were starting to transition into? Was it just a self initiative, or were there things that just kind of came to light, tools that came
You
to light?
know, I'll tell you, one of the biggest tools I had, as I said, the blessing was leaving the job. I spent a lot of time in stillness, um, some meditation, but not very much, because some people, not all, but with PTSD, find it very difficult to meditate and be still. It was hard for me. It was just the quiet. I mean, I would spend days with no music on, no television, and it was just silent and very, very peaceful. So that was very healing to me. And I've incorporated that into, the lesson plans and all that I'm working on. I took various different tools, um, like being out in nature. And because it was difficult for me to sit and meditate, I found walking meditation worked very well because I was outside in nature and listening to birds and trees and birds chirping and that kind of thing, and just seeing my surroundings and getting in touch with my surroundings, but also getting deep into my emotions and feelings being in nature. So it wasn't so much as like a Zen meditation and sitting there for 20 minutes and trying to clear your mind. When you're going through something like this, it's very difficult to keep your mind clear. So it was almost a distraction. I needed the distraction of birds and people walking around and this kind of thing. That was very helpful for me. And I still do this. I mean, I'll go to a restaurant or a coffee shop with my laptop, and it's pleasant to just be around people, but I don't always have to interact with them, if this makes sense. I think there are people out there who've gone through trauma and they want to be around other people, but they don't necessarily want to have a conversation or be within a lot of interaction.
So maybe so as you're saying this, one thing that comes to mind is maybe those who can identify with this
Mhm,
would feel like, I want to be in the company of
mhm.
others, and yet but to
Yes.
engage in that way, just my preference is to be reserved. Did you find that this is something that is more common than not as you were forging your path for this to be a profession of yours?
Yes, in terms of the feelings, the things that I was going through. I joined several groups within Facebook, that deal with PTSD and CPTSD, and I didn't interact quite a bit, but I read a lot of the comments, and what I was feeling was not necessarily that different than what the other people were feeling. Some were much more severe because maybe they'd had sexual abuse or other traumas and that kind of thing. Um, and there's big T trauma and little t trauma. We can go down that rabbit hole another time, but let's just say, for example, you could have two people experience the same thing, and one person is much more affected by it than the other. This happens a lot in families with siblings. They experience things differently, and it's also their personality and their makeup as well.
And so, what comes to me, and this is fascinating because
Mm,
there's a lot of internal work that would come
yes.
from the getting to the point of getting past trauma, such as this, and then anything similar to, to what you're mentioning.
Mhm,
Did you feel like the stillness of COVID, if you will, the
mhm,
fact that we all had to be self-quarantined and we were,
mhm.
did that force you to have that level of introspection, or did you
Oh,
find
yes.
that you were seeking that out on your own? Or was it something that just like it happened because of the circumstance and you were within your space?
It happened because of the circumstance. At the time, I was actually living in a beautiful place, a very large condo complex with a large pond. I call it a mini lake with ducks walking by and large carp in the lake. And it was great because I felt like I was living in the middle of a park. So having the quiet and the stillness, and yes, it was due to the circumstances, but however, I welcomed it. The job I had was so stressful for that period of 5 years. My role transitioned from being an on-staff designer to then being out in the field. And in fact, incidentally, not to pat myself on the back, but when I was launched into an outside sales rep position in 2019, despite everything I was feeling between my injury and the PTSD, I actually increased the revenue in my division by 26%, which was pretty amazing. Didn't find out until early 2020 in January when an email was sent from corporate. But um, as I said, I'm not coming from an arrogant space. It was pushing, 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 pushing to get things done and meet these quotas. And that's why the relief came in March 2020. At first, I was really panicked because I thought, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how this is all going to evolve." But it was such an incredible blessing that I'm so grateful, not that COVID happened, but my set of circumstances worked out for my benefit, for me to embark on this journey of introspection and stillness. And I like to believe that I can help other people with this, and I am helping other people with this. So it all came for the highest good.
I agree. And it's funny. I've said this before in conversations. I do believe that aside from the medical piece of COVID, like we all
Mhm,
know that can be that's a bear.
mhm,
But the unexpected surprise is that for those who thought on their feet, for
mhm,
those who had allowed their sense of creativity of, okay, here's life's plot twist. Now what do we
mm,
do? And they answered with attempting to come up with solutions,
mm,
that I found that more oftentimes than not, people who did do whatever they tried to figure
mhm,
it out and take action, that they came out of the quarantine piece
mhm.
in a level of resilience. So
Yes.
now in talking about this today, do you find that in conversations you're having with others, that is it harder, is it challenging or easier to create breakthroughs, personal breakthroughs, since COVID?
Everyone's going through something different as a result of everything that's happened over the last 3 years. Lives have changed, uh, people have had to pivot, people have gotten divorced, they've had to deal with grief, death, dying of family members. Um, it's such an individual thing, to be quite honest. I know that my resilience has really increased, not only because I'm happier doing what I'm doing now, because I really feel that this is my calling, despite all the other things that I've done in my life, which were wonderful and successful. Um, but I find that, some people are at crossroads. Many people are either struggling with where they are right now because they've had to pivot and they're not really quite sure what to do. Um, I don't know if I'm answering the question to your satisfaction. Did I answer it?
Deeper, real quickly, if
Mm,
we before we go to break,
mhm.
or have you noticed that it's been much more challenging for others, or maybe a little bit more frequent, easier for people to create their own personal breakthroughs since COVID by doing the work that you do, what you've seen?
What I've seen, as I said, many people I'm finding are at a crossroads. They took the COVID isolation as a break, of a really welcome break, but I'm finding that more and more people who have never taken the time to be introspective and really go into the stillness and really find out what they want to do with the rest of their life, or what they want to do right now as a shift, um, that's happening quite a bit. Um,
So there's a trend for sure. We're
there's a
gonna
trend for sure. Yes.
Yes, we're gonna take a commercial break. We will be right
Okay.
back here on the Health Revolution.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on the Tour of Love.
And the E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, spending some quality time with my guest today, Laura Alexander, trauma-informed transformational creativity coach. And we've been talking about how you've transitioned with the corporate job that you've had in the profession that you've had since COVID. You've changed. Obviously, you've changed your personal landscape, and this is a space that you occupy. Talk a little bit about transformational creativity. What is that? Share with our viewers.
So, transformational creativity is a process that I developed on my own after using several different methodologies. Not all processes and methods work for everyone. So, for me personally, I tried several different things, an assortment, a plethora, if you will, and started compiling things that were simple, easy to use, um, caused me to go deep inside myself and even look at the shadow side of things I didn't like about myself, and started compiling these as different tools in a toolbox. And besides walking meditation and inquiry, journaling, that kind of thing, and painting, I looked at several other things that some did not work for me. So I started compiling these methods and using them for myself, and hence started putting together a course that I did not launch. So it looks at various different aspects of ourself, such as self-concept, how we see ourselves, our self-worth issues. If there are issues with self-worth, where does that stem from? So it's going deep into ourself and looking at what may have caused that, whether it's a trauma or relationships that we've had or where it stems from. Um, and then some people feel disempowered. And where does that disempowerment come from? Again, is it relationships? Is it trauma? Is it our upbringing? Where did that come from? Um, and did we not have nurturing relationships in our life? So it's a big plethora of all these different things that I've put together and, focused on building better relationships and friendships. Some people out of loneliness may settle for either a romantic relationship or friendships. And I really started building boundaries for myself of things that really worked for me. And it didn't necessarily have to make sense to someone else, but it made sense to me. So these are all the things within, well, not all the things, there's quite a bit more within transformational creativity, along with using the creative tools, whether it is intuitive collage or painting or Neurographica, because Neurographica is only a part of what I call transformational creativity. It's a pretty good sized part, but it's not everything.
So talk a little bit more about your role as a Neurographica specialist. What is that for viewers who don't know?
Sure.
What's the overall, what's the concept behind that?
Okay, so Neurographica, and a lot of people don't know about it because there are probably 800,000 people worldwide using it in, I think, 35 or 38 countries in 15 languages. It was created by a Russian psychologist in 2014. And what it is really going deep into the subconscious. It is a scientifically proven method of drawing whereby each line is a thought. You start out with doing a free writing exercise for 2 or 3 minutes on a particular topic. And anything that relates to it could be names, places, phrases, anything related to that. The more words you have over 20, it's basically a hot topic. If you don't have at least 20 words relating to that topic, go back and focus on it a little bit more and try to spend more time. From there are various different drawing exercises. They're called algorithms. And there are algorithms for releasing limiting self-limiting thoughts, for transforming your thinking, for creating more peace. Long story, there are many, many different drawing exercises that you can utilize for whatever goal that you are going after, whether it is achieving a goal and manifesting something or trying to release and process emotions. So each line is a thought. The process runs 2 to 3 hours if you're going to go deep. So it's not like a one and done and you're done in 15 minutes. There are some very quick exercises that you can use to release stress, like if you're sitting in a parking lot, or in traffic, or well, you're not gonna do it when you're in traffic, but, you can quickly utilize some of the exercises to vent stress. But so in doing the exercises and going through the entire process, as I said, it's 2 to 3 hours depending on how large a piece of paper and how deep the issue is that you wanna go into. There are 8 distinct steps going through the process. We're also, throughout the entire process, looking at how are you feeling in your body? Are you feeling tension in your neck, in your back, in your arms? What are the emotions that are coming up on each individual step? We're looking at the language of emotions. We're the psychology of color. Um, and sometimes to process, you may need to do the exercise several times. So you do it once and you come out with this drawing. I believe that everyone is their own healer. I am just the guide taking you through this journey. And when you complete the drawing, I encourage people to stay with it because the drawing will speak to you over time. It may not give you an answer that you're seeking at that moment, but it may come to you in the shower a week later or days later, weeks later. So
I'm
it's a
intrigued.
process.
Yes, I'm intrigued by this because obviously it sounds brand new. So 2014, this is when this was created and
Yes.
this is when this started. How did you come across Neurographica?
Well, it's only been offered in English for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And well, 2 or 3 years. It's not been that long, and I discovered it about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I took a class for myself. I found it online. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. I mean, it's so distinctly, you've seen the images. It's very, very different, and it's very electrifying. But what really fascinated me was the method and the philosophy behind it, because you are going into the subconscious and making the subconscious conscious, if you can follow me with this. We are run by our subconscious. Most people don't even realize this, but that's the operating system that's working in the background 24/7, and it runs about 90% of what we do. Now, if you spend time in awareness and in the present moment and delving deep into intuitive inquiry, you'll learn more about yourself and become more aware. The Neurographica process is really, it's fascinating, it's interesting, it helps you release stress, but it helps with cognitive function. Um, it helps you achieve goals. It's not just goal mapping, but goal setting and achieving those goals. Some of the exercises have certain timelines. And what's really uncanny, I hate to use the word metaphysical, but there's a big spiritual part to this because what happens, if anyone follows Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, as I do, It's very spiritual, but you are activating and raising your frequency, your vibration as well. And so what I have experienced and what many other people experience doing this process is that while you're working on it, synchronicities happen. It's really very interesting. And I have seen this happen over and over, not only in my life, but with other people that I'm working with.
So I have a question for you. So
Sure.
how do you establish the integration between creative, obviously
Mhm.
art, and then the science behind Neurographica? Where do you start? How do you create the foundation or guide someone to establish their foundation when you are working with them for the first time?
Well, for the first time, they have to learn how to do the process. And when I say the process, you have to learn how to create this mindful line, this neurographic line. And it's a little bit more difficult for some people than others because the line goes where you don't expect it to go. So when you sit down and actually draw something, you're looking at an image and you're trying to duplicate that. This is actually drawing, and if your mind is telling you to go right, go left. If your mind is telling you to go up, you bring it down. The lines are very wavy. And so then that's process one. You have to learn how to do that first. And it sometimes takes 45 minutes to an hour to teach someone to do that because they have to release control. And for some people, it's more difficult than others. You're doing something that you've never done before. It's like playing the violin or, learning a language. But what you're doing is learning to create this line, and then there are intersections that we conjoin. So they have to learn how to do that. When you look at these conjoining intersections, what they look like neurons in the brain. So they're like mirror neurons. You're activating neurons in the brain. This is why, with this process and over time, you're creating new neural pathways for positive change for that which you want to accomplish, achieve, um, change yourself for. You can use it for many, many different things.
So as you're talking, so when you're having dialogue with others, maybe
Mhm,
other professionals who are also in the space of helping people transcend and really
mhm.
tap into their talents and get past limited
Beliefs.
thinking,
Mhm.
what has been the dialogue? What has the dialogue been like when you've talked to other professionals or others who are now learning about Neurographica specialists, learning about the true roles that you have, transformational creativity coach? What's it been like to share and teach others and bring them to awareness of what this represents?
It's actually been fascinating because most of the people I've spoken with, I'm actually speaking at our local museum in December. Um, Other conversations with other podcast hosts and other people that I'm presenting to and teaching, they've never seen anything like it. And the whole concept behind it, it's a whole new world. Um, this process is actually used with within, I should say, within certain hospitals, select hospitals in Europe and I believe Russia, with cancer patients for pain management. It is so broad based in how many applications that it has. You can use it for many different things, as I stated earlier. But when I show people, I had someone say to me, wow, this just blows my mind. This is so out of the box and so completely different, which it is. You look at the drawings and they're really fascinating. They're beautiful as well. Um, but it's allowing you to think out of the box. This is the whole thing about doing a neurographic line because it's not, some people have said to me, well, I can't draw a straight line. I said, well, that's great because it's not a straight line.
Mhm. That's true. And
Mhm.
and I could imagine how So for someone like me who's interpreted art as in being subjective,
Mm-hmm.
how do you guide someone to really, maybe someone who is open to being creative and exploring and getting past their limiting beliefs? How do you guide someone to keep going with that, to be able to encourage them that yes, it's subjective art, but now we're using these principles, and let's see where we can get from here.
Well, it's interesting because the coaching clients, and they're not really students, they're coaching clients, because we're addressing certain issues that they want to go with and work on. Um, they want to keep going with it because they're gaining insights as they go on. It's not a magic wand where you just create a drawing and you have some serious insight. It comes and unfolds very slowly. So it's like if you start seeing a therapist, you don't get the big aha moment. Well, sometimes you do, I guess. Um, but it takes time. You have to keep at it, and it's not like just waving a wand and wow, I have this insight. As I said, it unfolds. You have the unfoldment of the insight over a period of time. This is why it's important to keep going with it. And I have some clients in a small group workshop where we're addressing these issues. It's a small, intimate group, and we meet twice a month. And this is really important for them to tackle these issues. So, it takes a little bit of time. Some people either get it or they don't. It's not, as I said, it's not for everyone, but the people who have gone into it, who really feel committed, keep with it. And some people feel that it's either too difficult or they're not resonating with it. It's like with any healing method, or some people are into Reiki, or some people are into somatic experiencing or dance movement. If it doesn't resonate with you, you won't stick with it.
And so, what I love about what you're saying is that we have to think past what we used to think.
That's right.
So, whatever we've been taught as coping skills
Mhm.
over across time,
Yes.
that I'm loving the idea of really just going beyond that, and let's see what we can come up with. What you identify with, what's really pulling you,
Mhm.
and what's allowing you to um, what begins to make sense with getting to the heart of the matter, would you say?
Yes. In fact, I had one student, she's a professor. She said to me she didn't really think it was for her. And I said, I encouraged her and I said, I would give it 2 or 3 tries before you give up on it. It takes a little bit of time to learn how to actually do it. And some people give up more easily than others. So I encourage people and say, just give it 2 or 3 tries. If you really feel that it's not for you, then it's not for you. But if you can stick with it and allow those insights to come to you, because as I said, you're thinking out of the box. One of the premises of Neurographica, because you're creating lines and drawings that you've never done before, you're allowing things to happen. Not only the drawing part, the actual physical drawing part, but the synchronicities that happen and coincide with the unfoldment of the drawing.
This is very, very powerful. We're going to go ahead and take a commercial
Okay.
break right here. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere on
Okay.
Health Revolution.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. We're so glad you're here. I'm Adriana Morrison. We are spending quality time with Laura Alexander, trauma-informed transformational creativity coach and Neurographica specialist. And we do have a live stream comment that came in from Mimi, who asked, is there a benefit that is common to everyone who uses this? And Laura, definitely would love for you to answer this.
Well, it's insight, as I said earlier. So the benefit is allowing yourself to be open to new thoughts. The whole premise beside, as I said earlier, if creating these lines and these intersections is activating the neurons in your brain. So by doing so, you're expanding your awareness and you're using different parts of your brain. And so what that does, it allows you to think out of the box and create. You're coming up with creative new solutions to old problems. And once someone starts getting into this, you might just be, maybe you did the drawing a week ago, and then all of a sudden ideas and solutions to these problems come to you. Or it could be a synchronistic event, part of the metaphysical part of it. And it's without actually doing a demonstration or actually showing you an image. There are lines that extend out to the ends of the paper. And what happens is you are, now I'm going to go a little spiritual on you, but you're asking consciousness, the universe, God, creator, whatever you want to call it, to come in and help you and allow for that to happen, whether it's the solution to the problem or helping you become enlightened. I know this sounds very...
No, I do. I love this because this allows us, so there's a level of open-mindedness.
Yes.
That we're making that conscious decision to choose past what we think
yes
help us, or that what we assume has always been the case, that has been a resource tool to rely. So by going and just opening ourselves out there, this gives you this, we're giving ourselves permission to, to not put a ceiling cap over what our beliefs have been. So it's
absolutely
how powerful this is.
Yes, it is. It's extremely powerful. And at first, when I took the class for myself, I did 4 drawings, was for personal use. And then I thought, well, this is interesting. I'm going to take it a lot farther. I've watched all kinds of things manifest in my life. You can do affirmations and vision boards and that kind of thing, but that affects the front part of your brain, which it's all mind. Okay. With Neurographica, you are actually going in and reaching into the subconscious to bring this up to the surface. So it's much more inclusive. It's not a top down, it's a bottom up solution to the issues.
So who all is this good for? Men, women,
everyone. I'll tell you, I teach neuro art, which is different than Neurographica. It's kind of the same thing, but not exactly. I at a high-end retirement community here in Carmel, my oldest student is 103. A month ago, my oldest was 101, because I have several. They're probably in their 70s up to the hundreds. The groups that I have been working with workshops, just introductory, have been anywhere from, I think my youngest was 30 and typically up to about 70. Mainly women, but it was interesting because I had a workshop a month ago and I had a couple come in and they needed to work on something together, and he was colorblind. So his drawing was very, very interesting. You want to talk about out of the box. It was definitely out of the box, but she was helping guide him with colors because, there's the psychology of color comes into this as well. And the colors that you select, there's no right way and there's no wrong way to do it. The process, the method that we use, there's a specific method, but every single drawing from everybody looks completely different. And my drawings look different from one to the next.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I know that, so it's good to know that anybody can tap into this and utilize this to grow and to really to excel just internally and see where that leads. I want to make sure we give attention to an area where you also pinpoint some of your talents, and that talk a little bit about Art to Thrive. And I definitely want to bring up some information onto the screen as you do that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Art to Thrive is a membership. As I said earlier, I created this course with Transformational Creativity and then became certified as a Neurographica specialist. So I've combined both with the entire toolkit, and I've created a membership that I'm launching September 27th. So if someone goes to the website, they'll see Art to Thrive waitlist, and I'll be launching the 27th, and I'll be sending emails out, and I'll have the cart open for, I think, 5 days until I think October 1st, I believe. I have to look at the calendar, but, and we'll start in October, and it will be twice a month with group coaching, group calls. And how I've worked this out is I took the course and created all this content for an entire year. So every month there will be a theme and a creative tool, whether it's Neurographica or something else, guided meditation, some very specific journaling prompts, just a few to have you go deep within yourself. And I'm creating the Facebook group where you'll have a safe container to express your emotions if you wish, and the drawings within a private community.
So just to be clear that this is for women and that the focus is this is for women.
It's for women. I mean, if we have men, I think the mood changes a little bit. I'm not saying that we'll exclude men if they are a bit more sensitive and open to this. I find that women are much more open to things like this for increasing their awareness and personal development. But of course, men are welcome if they wish to be included. But it is primarily for women 40 and above, and who are going through changes or want to find out more about themselves or work on their goals or release stress, process their emotions, and release self-limiting beliefs. I mean, as I said, we go through self-worth and self-concept and empowerment and this kind of thing. The months will build upon each other, but if we relaunch in several months, and I'm not sure when we will again, the thing is you can always go back in and watch the previous months through the portal.
Pretty incredible tools there. We're going to take a very quick commercial break. Okay. We'll be right back after this.
Okay.
Pearson here, host of Invisible Condition, where we talk about all the people who are living and thriving with all those conditions that you can't necessarily see from the outside. Join me every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we've been spending time with Laura Alexander, trauma-informed transformational creativity coach and Neurographica specialist. We are, of course, we've got just a little bit of time. Talk to us about where can viewers find you as people are leaning into the talents that you bring to the table?
I am on Instagram with my full name, Laura Christina Alexander. Christina, I have an unusual spelling, but if they can download the sheet that we just had up, it has that information for the website. So if you go to the website, up at the top, there are the social media. There we go. There are social media links, so you can tap into Facebook and you can tap into Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Okay. Laura, this has been incredible. And I know that you, no doubt, I love the space that you represent because it's unique of an area where we can certainly learn to grow in different directions where we can certainly, we can have our takeaways and become stronger and resilient as we're moving forward. Do you have anything coming up in 2024 in case viewers catch this on the replay and they miss the September the launching?
Yes. I haven't quite decided yet, depending on what happens, whether I'll launch twice a year or 3 times a year. What's happening in September, before I touch on 2024, I'm doing what's called a founding members launch. And so if people join at that time, they'll be locked in at a membership price that will never go up. I am collaborating with a couple of people right now on possible retreats and workshops that will also utilize or incorporate the other healing modalities that they have as well. So we'll be working on that. And I'm actually thinking of creating a book. So I don't want to get too far into that.
Sure.
But so on manifestation and using these tools for manifestation.
That's fantastic. And obviously you're going to have real-time developments on your website so
Yes.
that no matter when people are tuning in, they can catch the latest information from you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are running out of time. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time, your input, your insight, and how people can tap into crushing limiting beliefs. So
Yes. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
absolutely. And for viewers, those of you who are tuning in and you're catching the episode, we're so glad that you are here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And no matter which way you've tuned into, we'd love to continue to connect with you. On the screen, you see our website here at thehealthrevolutiontv.com. There you can find you can subscribe to our newsletter, keep up with show information. If there are topics in which you would love to hear more about and experts who can chime in and share some nuggets, please let us know. And for that, we are out of time. So you can find us here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV. Until next time, take care. We'll see you soon.